Hello, my name is Rob Kinneen. I am the Outreach Director for NATIVS, North American Traditional Indigenous Food Systems. And today I am in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the Indigenous Food Lab at the Midtown Global Market. We're in a hustling and bustling environment here. We've got our R&D kitchen working, our marketplace rolling, and the rest of the Midtown Global Market as well. So real time, real action. If you hear a little background noise, that's what's going on. I'm here today to talk about Alaskan ingredients. So these are some flavors that I grew up with, and I just wanted to talk about them real quick with you. So what we have here is mostly mariculture on this side. So the one thing that I love is spot prawns, and these are just cold water shrimp. They tend to be a little smaller, but the sweetness and delicate nature of these shrimp, our prawns, are just beautiful. No substitution for this. So I'm very excited to have these here today to work with. These are some cockles, and they're bivalves, so similar to clams. And when they're harvested, you steam them, the shells open up, or you take the meat and you kind of clean off everything residual, and there's a little pocket here. So some people cut it. We just put our insert or our finger and rinse it out as the gut sack, and those are ready to rumble. So we have some cockles. Also recently harvested are some abalone. These are a mollusk, and these were beautiful. They're basically in a shell. This is the boot that connects to the shell, and you have to kind of grab them quick, because if you touch the shell, like this part here is actually like a little suction cup, so it'll just suck to a rock, and it's really hard to get off. So we took these, basically dropped them in boiling water until they stopped kind of moving, and pulled them out, rinsed them off a little bit, just kind of pop. We just used our fingers, pulled that out. Varying degrees on how to clean these. Some people scrub this off, all this dark matter here, but I was told it's great to eat. There's a little reproductive organ on one side that we kind of just pulled off, and that could be some potential health problems. And then there was a little gut sac that kind of just got removed as well. So abalone, excited to be working with this. These are herring eggs, and these came from Sitka or Sheet Kakwan. And again, these are a gift from the Point House or the Kiks. So to me, these are pretty much a Tlingit delicacy. So I left Southeast young, but I know my uncles would do, there'd be 2 or 3 of them, and they'd take turns laying out hemlock boughs, which this is a hemlock bow. Or if you're a bougie native, you'd throw out some kelp. And so the herring come, they spawn, and they leave the eggs on there, and then you gather them up. They're taken and they're frozen really quickly. I've known people that dip these in boiling water, but to me, it's just not my favorite. I love eating them just like this, right out of these are defrosted, and you can see when you grab these, you're just pulling them right off the bow. You've got this beautiful chunk of herring roe, and it's a treat. So I grew up dipping it in soy sauce. We've got some seal oil, which is a little more tradish. So we've got that going for us. Another thing that I was very excited to get was a halibut cheek. Again, growing up, I can remember my uncles coming home with like 2 5-gallon buckets of halibut heads, and they'd be sitting out on the porch, and they'd just be talking story, popping the cheeks, clean them up. Now these are, it was a byproduct of catching a halibut. Now these are like $25 a pound, if not more. So they're very delicious and very unique. The rest of the halibut, the meat is firm texture, medium to firm flesh. The halibut cheek, though, it's got a firm texture, but it's also, if you look really close, the muscle structure goes like a flank steak. It all runs in one direction. So the texture on them is really, really fun. Real treat to be working with that. To me, again, another exercise in total utilization. That's a culinary term you grow up like total product utilization, but Indigenous resources have been doing this for millennia. And so again, this is something that you might see as a byproduct, or even something that just ends up in the trash or in a processing facility, goes to somewhere else. But this is the belly, and you've got a little bit of fin here. This is, I actually just ate at a restaurant in Juneau, and my friend made what he called salmon wings. And he took this meat here and cured it, so it's just right off this little wing here. It was delicious. That would be a contemporary style. So what I love about this is you've got the rich fattiness of the meat, These were bought and processed in Juneau, Alaska. Tlingit Ani, if you will, that's the land of the Tlingit. And so these are, again, another treat. These are fully cooked, so look at that rich, beautiful meat, and there's a lot of belly fat there too, so delicious. Going on to more of the botanicals that you would find in Alaska. These are kind of set up in no particular order. We'll start with rose hips. These are not from Alaska, but I got some for inspiration. And again, high vitamin C, wonderful in teas, and I cook them with savory applications. So we're gonna be working with rose hip today in a vinaigrette. This is Labrador tea, or Hudson Bay tea, or swamp tea. Huge antimicrobial benefits. So if you're mostly with indigestion, sore throat, things like that, this is a really good tea to be making. And again, I use this in more savory applications. Spruce tips, now these are dried. And normally when you see them in the spring, you've got a spruce tree and they're dark green. And then you've got these almost neon green tips that come off the top. That's what these are before they get dried like this. Again, vitamin C, when explorers were arriving to Alaska, people would, the indigenous people would be like, oh, you got that thing going on, the bloody gums or sores, and they knew they had scurvy. So they gave them vitamin C, or they gave them spruce tip tea to help quell that illness with them. So that's amazing indigenous resource knowledge there. One thing that's kind of cool is you can take this and make a jelly. So this is actually available at the Indigenous Food Lab Marketplace. And this is from Barnacle Seafoods, which is out of Juneau, Alaska. So this is a wonderful way to kind of taste this. I always say, to me, spruce tips are like if mint and rosemary had a baby, kind of. Like, you're not gonna be able to taste it and think of anything else because it's a unique flavor. So the experience of having it is really just well worth trying. This, I'm very excited to work with. It's black seaweed. This is something that is very dear to indigenous people. It's not, generally speaking, on the marketplace. This was gifted to us again by Kiks. And I'm very excited to use this. I was thinking about when I was a little boy, my great-grandparents had a manual meat grinder, and they would put this black seaweed through the meat grinder, and it would go onto a window screen. They would go up on two like sawhorses, and it would just basically be spread out to dry. And they called it Indian popcorn. So you can just eat it as a snack right away, or you can drop it in a soup or a chowder or something like that. I've never seen it this big, but it's a real treat to try. And when you bite into it, you've got saline, but you've also got the minerality of the sea, which is just beautiful. So you've got that iodine flavor, but then like on the background, all these other flavors that just kind of keep on percolating even long after you chew it and swallow it. So you're just kind of got this beautiful mouthfeel from that. This is bowl kelp. These are pickles. So this was a gift again from the Kiks. It looks like a whip sitting on the beach, and it can be 4 to 6 feet long, and that's what me and my brothers did, was Indiana Jones each other all the time. If you take them, you slice them thin. These are pickles. And you can see how they're hollow in the middle, and there's different sizes. So that would be more towards the tip of the kelp, and that's towards the meat of the bottom. They take the kelp and grind it and produce it into a salsa. So you've got the hot sauce with the little kelp minerality from the sea again. So it's a unique flavor. The furikake, it's basically all ground kelp. The interesting part is that they take 10 pounds of kelp, let's say, they grind it and they dehydrate it, you end up with a half a pound left. So it dehydrates 95%. All that flavor is concentrated into the kelp powder. So with that, they make this and other spice blends. Again, online at Barnacle Seafoods, or available at the IF Indigenous Food Lab Marketplace online, or in person in Minneapolis. A super special treat to me is beach asparagus, glasswort. Can't think of anything else. There's some other super fancy names you can call it. But when you look at this, again, you kind of go down to the beaches. Essentially, all these greens, goose tongue, beach greens, beach asparagus, the sea comes up and it will splash up. It'll kind of capture that, and then that's kind of what goes into these. So as they're growing, it's not just the water, but it's the minerality of the sea, and you get that flavor, and it's just unmistakable, undeniable, and beautiful, and super good for you. The last thing that's really exciting for me is, I'm gonna tilt it this way, or I'll open it up. This is seal oil, and this is rendered. So there's a lot of different types of seal oil, but this is rendered. So they basically take the fat from the seal and they render it out, and this is put in a jar and kept. One year I had this in Sitka, and then a couple months later I went up to Kotzebue and I had a canned, it was like a jar like this, and it said seal oil tundra herbs. So it was rendered, and then it had tundra herbs added to it, probably like lovage, maybe Labrador tea, something else. It was very medicinal. It was really wonderful, but it had somebody was just saying it's like almost like eating, it's like herring oil or like a heady olive oil. There's like rich and viscous, but then it's got a little background note to it. Kind of an umami flavor of sea or herring is what I would say. And then the last part of the year, I was doing an event at the state fair, and it had something called black meat seal oil. And that's where they take the fat, they put it in a jar, and they just put it in a counter or in a basement somewhere. And the meat basically rots, it constricts, and as it constricts, the oil gets released from the meat, from the fat. So that was a very different experience for me. But this is something that would go with herring eggs or a delicacy, but and it's just like a little bit, I was just putting it right on there. And to me, it's just super rich and viscous. It's again like a heady olive oil to me. And then the end is almost like a dried fish flavor integrated into it, very subtle. So, and this is something when you read a lot about traditional foods, a lot of things would be pickled and then preserved in seal oil. So that's what we got going on here. Well, this is a little intro to foraged foods in Alaska and a couple of alternatives to gather them. And we'll be making some dishes with this later today, so stay tuned.